When a black woman was left waiting without service, no one paid attention. Seconds later, her next move silenced the entire room.
The afternoon sun spilled golden light across the small town, casting long shadows that danced on the sidewalks. Inside a cozy restaurant tucked along the busy street, the air buzzed with the warmth of conversation. Laughter rose from one corner, the clink of glasses from another, while the aroma of grilled meat and freshly baked bread lingered in the air. The place felt alive, a sanctuary of comfort and routine. The door creaked open, and a woman stepped inside. She moved quietly, almost blending with the soft hum of the afternoon. Her attire was modest, simple yet graceful, and though nothing about her demanded attention, there was an undeniable dignity in the way she carried herself. Her eyes, calm and steady, seemed to take in the entire room at once. Sunlight spilled across her face as she walked toward an empty table by the window. She sat down slowly, folding her hands in her lap, her posture neither hurried nor hesitant. Around her, waiters hurried from table to table, their voices weaving through the rhythm of plates and footsteps. To anyone else, it was just another afternoon. But for this woman, and for the restaurant itself, something extraordinary was quietly beginning. She sat quietly by the window, the sunlight catching the edge of her profile as she scanned the menu. Around her, the restaurant thrummed with activity, plates clattering, bursts of laughter, the comforting hum of midday routine. Yet at her table, stillness lingered. A waitress breezed past, her smile wide as she leaned over another table, laughing at a customer's joke. Her pen scribbled notes with ease, her voice light and cheerful. But when her gaze flicked briefly toward the woman by the window, it hardened, then slid away as though the table were empty. The woman waited. Her hands folded neatly, her patience unshaken. Minutes stretched longer, the air heavy with unspoken tension. She raised her hand politely, the universal signal of a waiting guest. The waitress's eyes caught the movement. There was no mistaking it, but she pivoted sharply toward another group, her cheerful tone carrying as she poured water and delivered plates. One by one, other tables received their orders, their meals arriving with promptness and care. Only her table remained bare, untouched. A quiet ache of unfairness pressed against the air, subtle yet unmistakable. And still, the woman sat with calm dignity, as though she knew something no one else did. The woman did not frown, nor did she sigh in frustration. Instead, she remained still, her gaze steady as she watched the dance of the restaurant unfold. Every detail seemed to register. The hurried footsteps of the waiters, the clinking of plates, the easy laughter of customers who were served with warmth she had been denied. Her calmness was striking, almost unsettling, as if she carried within her a secret that no one else could see. Her eyes, deep and unwavering, lingered not on the waitress but on the room itself, as though she were measuring it, memorizing every corner. There was no bitterness in her face, only a quiet calculation hidden beneath layers of composure. She was not an ordinary customer, and something in the air suggested she knew it. At a nearby table, a young couple exchanged uneasy glances. The woman leaned in, whispering softly, "She hasn't been served." "Did you notice?" The man nodded, his jaw tightening, but neither spoke louder than a murmur, afraid to disturb the strange tension curling through the room. At last, the woman by the window rose, not with anger nor haste, but with deliberate grace, an air of quiet resolve that hinted change was already on its way. The woman's chair slid back with the faintest scrape against the tiled floor. Conversations barely faltered as she walked calmly toward the door, her presence quiet but unshakably certain. Outside, the sunlight embraced her again, a golden warmth against her skin. She reached into her bag, drew out her phone, and pressed it to her ear. Her voice, low yet resolute, carried an authority that seemed at odds with the simplicity of her appearance. There was no anger in her tone, only clarity, firmness, and a quiet finality, like someone giving instructions that would not need repeating. The words themselves were lost in the breeze, but the cadence spoke of decisions already made long before this afternoon. Minutes later, she returned. The same door swung open, and the chatter within the restaurant rose again, oblivious at first to the shift in the air that trailed behind her. She did not reach for the menu this time, nor lift her hand for service. Instead, she stood tall in the middle of the room, her gaze sweeping across startled faces before settling with calm precision. "I'd like to speak with the manager," she said softly, but the weight in her voice silenced the room. The manager appeared, adjusting his tie as he approached with a polite but distracted smile. Yet before he could speak, the woman's calm voice filled the room. "I won't be needing a menu," she said evenly. "What I need to tell you is this." She paused, her eyes sweeping across the restaurant, every table now hushed, every gaze fixed on her. "I have just finalized a purchase agreement for this establishment. The papers will be delivered within the hour." For a heartbeat, silence reigned. Then, as the weight of her words sank in, gasps rippled through the room like a sudden gust of wind. Forks clattered against plates, conversations died mid-sentence, and even the music from the speakers seemed to fade into the background. The waitress who had ignored her stood rooted in place, her face drained of color. The pen she once twirled so casually now trembled in her fingers. Her mouth opened, but no words came. The woman by the window, the woman everyone had overlooked, smiled. It was not the smile of triumph or revenge, but of steady kindness. No malice lingered in her expression, only the composure of someone who knew her worth long before anyone else did. All eyes were fixed on her, waiting for the inevitable storm. The staff braced themselves, certain the waitress's career would end in that very moment. But the woman's expression softened, her voice calm and measured, carrying through the hushed restaurant. "I won't ask for you to be fired," she said gently, turning toward the trembling waitress. "But I will ask this. From today forward, learn to treat every guest with respect, no matter who they are. If you cannot do that, then this is not the place for you." Her words hung in the air, not sharp like a blade, but steady as stone. The weight of them was undeniable. The waitress lowered her gaze, her once confident stance crumbling. Her cheeks flushed, and her lips pressed together as if holding back tears. She nodded, the bravado she had worn earlier replaced by something far more fragile: humility. Around them, the staff exchanged glances, stunned, not by anger, but by the woman's unexpected grace. In her restraint, she commanded more respect than fury ever could. The restaurant, once noisy with chatter, now seemed transformed, every person present silently absorbing the lesson unfolding before their eyes. The restaurant slowly returned to life, though the air still carried a quiet reverence. The woman chose a table in the corner, the same way she had before, calm, composed, and unhurried. Yet everything had changed. She was no longer just a guest waiting to be acknowledged. She was the owner now, the heart of the place she had once been denied a simple meal. Sunlight streamed through the window, bathing her in a warm glow as she sat with quiet dignity. She did not boast, did not gloat, but instead observed her new space with the same thoughtful eyes that had seen more than anyone realized. The waitress moved carefully through the room, her posture smaller, her every action weighed with the lesson she had just learned. The staff whispered among themselves, still stunned by the turn of events, yet grateful to witness it. The woman's presence spoke louder than any declaration could. She had not won through anger, but through patience, wisdom, and grace. And so the story closes with a truth that lingered in every corner of the restaurant. Respect should never depend on appearances. The person you dismiss today may be the very one who changes your tomorrow.